hopefully Daddy will come. New Daddy.
I swear it sounds like you're saying daddy.
He did, that's what I thought he said.
There we go.
He's the only
I'm
one
here.
here.
You're great grandpa.
Not quite.
Well, okay, with that introduction, welcome. This is the meeting of that was the fifth meeting, more or less, of the
Fifth meeting.
Capital Improvements Committee, which is an advisory committee to the planning board to present a plan for the capital improvements and capital expenditures for the town over the next 5 years, right? 6 years. 6 years. We don't adopt it, we recommend it, and in the end it's voted on by the voters in the infinite wisdom at town meeting and school meeting. As we usually do, let's start by introducing ourselves. We'll interrupt Ellen, who's looking at her cell phone. Here he comes.
Looking for my calendar.
We'll start with you.
There he is.
Here he is.
Who's daddy?
Ellen Vermakowitz,
It's true.
representative of the school board.
Lauren Dukas, Budget Committee Representative.
Jim Craig, Select Board Representative.
Kimberly Peace.
Jim Raymond.
Gail Brett, community member and recording secretary.
Brad Parker, community member at large.
Derek Horn, Town Administrator and Staff Liaison.
Joanne Duffy, planning director.
Dan O'Connell, community member at large.
AKA Daddy. When do you want to take our pictures? You have to do that.
We can do that at the end.
Do it at the end?
Okay.
We gotta move some of the
Yeah.
tables.
Yeah.
We have just 1 minute, set of minutes, or two to?
Just one.
Just one.
Okay, they were sent to you by email. Did everybody have a chance to read them? No, I'm not asking you. Did you? I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve.
Jim, you got a second?
I
All those
second.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry,
You
I was not here, I'm an
abstained. Yeah,
abstention.
you weren't here, yeah. You missed one of the more
I
interesting
don't think
meetings.
Dan was here.
You were here last time. You weren't?
Wow, did I fly into that radar?
Just lying, or is
Was
it?
it two?
Oh, what's your name again? Okay, well, you really should read those minutes, because the Public Works, they talked about a lot of interesting planning that's going on for the future, not all of which would fall within our purview, but it's interesting to see what the town's going to have to do to deal with the future. It's challenging. Okay, tonight's agenda really is, if we can, coming up with a final matrix recommendation for the planning board, which we will then present to the planning board on September 8th. And when I say we, I'm going to, I will assign, each of you will happily volunteer to present one or more topics, so you'll do the talking and not me when we do it. And I thought that worked pretty well the last 2 years. You don't have to say much, because you don't, everybody goes for 5 minutes, but you'll have an area that you'll be charged with discussing. So,
That's a 7 o'clock meeting, right?
it is. So as we discuss this, you can be thinking about what topics you might like to present. I was like Jim Craig could do the school and Ellen could do the town. But
I'm bringing the Gatorade.
yeah. Okay, let's look at the matrix then. Derek and Jeremy, why don't you lead us through this and where we are?
Okay, so just to make, we did distribute updated matrix at the last meeting, and I understand that Patty mailed those to people who were not able to attend. So it should read in the bottom right corner, matrix updated July 6, 2022, and that should be page 1 of 10 that we're starting on. And as you're looking at the matrix, column H was what was in the adopted budget that was approved at town meeting this year. And then you have a column I, which is what is approved by the department heads. So you have the amount that would be in 2023, and then you have the out years over to your right. And then you have your department priority in column F. So the column headers are at the top of each page. And typically, what the CIP committee has done is gone through and seen if they want to shift anything, or if they want to change department priorities, or anything to that.
Before I want everybody to flip to page 10. Let's start at the end, at the bottom, because one of our goals is to the extent possible, even out tax impact from year to year. Now, we're not the budget committee, we're not looking at this as, will the voters approve it, although we're not going to suggest something that's clearly wouldn't necessarily, but our goal is to present a plan that doesn't have unnecessary dips, peaks and valleys in it. So it's useful to start there as sort of the overview, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, when they're presented, we're looking at individual departments, but the town, taxpayers, budget committee, school board, select board are going to look at overall tax impact of the total number. So I think it's worth looking at that, and then going backwards to see if there's, there's some peaks or valleys that we need to even out. But I need Derek to help us that some of the, we budget on a gross budget basis, doesn't necessarily show income or how it's going to be spread out over time. We saw that in some of the presentations, large number, but it's going to be bonded, so the tax impact is extended. It looks like a big number that year, but in fact, it may not be as a town planning, so I think we can consider that. And I'm saying that not that we have to move everything around, but it's good to get this picture in our mind of what we're looking at if we do or don't. Derek, I don't know if you have any conclusions from...
So the way we've done this is when there are grants, capital reserve funds, we show that as an offsetting revenue. We also do that with the bond. We show the bond as an offsetting revenue, and we do not show those out years of what those payments will be. So a project, let's say like the library project, in the matrix, it shows no tax impact, when in fact it'll have a tax impact for whatever the voters approve for, whether it's a 15 or 20-year bond. So that can be a little bit deceiving. And then I would also mention in year 2028, that out year, you have quite a
That's a
few.
placeholder.
You have quite a few large projects on the school side that I think they're still trying to figure out if there will be state funding for the state share on the school that used to be there, as well as they have some potential bonding for their parking lots and their roads. So a lot of those don't have the offsetting revenue, so that almost $17 million price tag that you see in the bottom right, that would definitely be changing, and it could potentially bond a portion of it that would extend it out into the future.
And one of the things this committee has been good at is looking at some of those big projects that are out in the future and not fixating on them because they are out. Not that we describe the future, but the planning isn't fully in place, but it's worth having them in the matrix, even if they're not final numbers or actual numbers. As Eric said, this is only a rough picture because of the adjustments he described, but I still think it's useful to see what our goal could be. As some of the departments, school in particular, have noted, timing of projects is an issue. You say, oh, you can move that forward or back, and you say, no, it has to be done with other projects to be efficient.
To be efficient, and also with regard to what the grant ESSER 1, 2,
Correct,
3s
yeah.
and
both
the
from a
different grants that come in.
expenditure and an income basis.
Right.
So again, I want to fixate on this, but I will note, if you look on the bottom line, 289, 225, 226 are higher years, and then it drops, and then we have that big year that Derek just said. So I don't know if that's something we need to look at as we go through it, Derek, or you think it's the actual impact is.
So I think that I wouldn't pay as much attention to 2028 because again, there's I think it was $7.5 million for that the school had, and that was gonna be based on whether or not there was state funding for all-day kindergarten. They also had quite a few parking lots that would be probably a bond issue as well. I think that was close to 4 million.
What about years 25 and 26?
Well, 25, I believe, has the pool. I just want to find where because the pool was about a $4 million.
2024.
Yeah, 4.1.
The pool's 2024, I think.
Yeah, so it doesn't contribute to the 6 million figure.
Okay, so I'm sorry, where's the pool?
2024, page
Yeah, I thought it was
6.
24.
What page?
Page 6 of 10.
Sorry.
It's okay, no, you didn't. I'm sorry. I can't believe
Oh,
it's
yes,
got the
thank
wrong
you.
book.
Yeah, it's on line
Yeah.
See, I people.
174.
And then just above it is the sports complex in 2025.
Yeah, so you have a sports complex. I'm trying to think of what were big impacts in those years that don't have the offsetting revenue. 'Cause that's really, where do you have those big projects that you don't have the offsetting revenue?
It doesn't have much for the revenue.
This one has a proposed bond.
And I think there's just quite a
For
few
the
different
pool.
ones on the school side. And then, I know Adam talked about it at the last meeting from DPW. He did a pretty good job of matching up the vehicles so that the vehicle
Yeah.
amounts were, he's made an effort to try and make those pretty flat
Yes.
as you go through the years. So yeah, it's really, you've got the recreation you've got the recreation sports complex in 2025, which was $1 million, with no offset, so whether that would come from straight appropriation or some type of combination. And then, I think everything else really has a,
2026, you've got the police, the Mass Road Station, 1.6 million. Page 4.
Page you want to make, Kim?
I'm sorry, page 4.
for fire, yeah, for
Yeah.
2026. So
Okay.
I think those are really your two big spikes that you're seeing at the bottom is you have the Parks and Rec complex, and then in 2026, the Mass Road Fire Station.
And are they likely to be bonded, or are they not necessarily? Not that-
So the last time we did the sports complex, and I'll look to Brad for a little bit of help, was it 500,000, I think?
Just a little over 500.
And we took funds from the Parks and Rec revolving fund,
Revolving fund?
as well as unassigned fund balance, so we did not bond that. I would say $1 million, once you get up over $1 million, you're probably thinking about bonding unless you can pull from a couple other sources. I know that the Mass Road Station, they haven't come up with a design for that, and the one, Church Street was 2.3 million, and that's been 5 years ago, so.
So the town really has two very small amount of bonds out right now, right?
No, we really only have one bond, the fire station bond. We do carry debt for a water project that went in behind the old Shaw's Plaza for the Moose Club Park, Lynchville Park, and Danish Park. As you go down to the river, Manchester Waterwork extended water mains down there, and there was a betterment assessment. So the property owners pay twice a year for that betterment assessment, but the town is responsible ultimately if they default on those, and then we would lien the property. But the only debt that we're paying on right now is the fire station bond.
And when is that?
That's in the very back of your, yes, thank you, Dan. So that goes through 2030. And that one is a fixed principal. So we pay $105,000 of the principal every year, and then, so right now we're paying about $155,000 a year on that, and it decreases a little bit over time. So we still have 1.5 in principal and 400,000 in interest to pay on that.
To pull it back to what we need to do, are these, again, looking at line 289 is the, I'm sorry. Should we look at moving any projects forward or backwards to reduce the impact in those years, or do you think that can be explained or accommodated by bonds and other?
I think you could likely you could maybe move some of them together, rather than Rick's got two $1 million projects apart by 3 years. Might make more sense to combine them and bond them. And I think the committee could leave it, since they're in the out years, and make that as a part of a recommendation, potentially.
Yeah.
And then, we'll probably, you might, or the other option is you could bond multiple Parks and Rec items on the same thing.
But 2023 is a light year. And
It is a light year in the fact that you are not seeing the impact of the library, because again, the library is a $6.36 million project proposed by the library in 2023. So in the matrix, it's offset by a bond. So
Okay.
you're not paying anything in that year. You're just borrowing the funds for it.
But explain that to the voters when they vote on that.
So the tax impact is not, and we discussed this, I think, a couple of meetings prior, is not seen on here at all.
It is not. No. Then that's the thing about bonds is it's not on your capital plan, but you do need to, I guess, talk about it at some point.
And this doesn't go to, okay, this goes to the planning board, it's not a budget committee. Okay.
No, from there, the planning board adopts it with whatever tweaks planning board, its wisdom decides to make. They used to make many, not so much recently. And then it goes to the Q3 budget committee.
So it's possible for us to okay this as we have it here, unless somebody sees something that could be changed, given these, what's the caveats of the bonding and that type of thing that isn't reflected here, so.
And I think we can do that in our presentation and in the report that I write, except last year I didn't get it done until after we met with the planning board. You're busy. Oh well. Let's go back then. I just want to have that overview, and just, we don't have to go into any detail, but just want to remind ourselves, go through each of the departments, and again, I'll look to Derek or Joanne just to refresh our recollections of what's going on, if there's anything that's particularly noteworthy. I mean, for example, we know
I'll
that.
look here, and then I'll just elbow you.
Please replace their vehicles on a schedule so we don't.
We don't really do much with the vehicles because
No,
the schedule.
no, and it makes sense. Public Works has down to fine art too. So Derek, why don't you just kind of walk us through the police?
Yeah, so outside of the vehicles, I will say that there was a change from the initial matrix when you get into the fire projects on line 110. So this is on page 4. Originally, they had cardiac monitors and defibrillators. They had them in multiple years. And what we've done is they were able to secure grant funds through the state, through some of the COVID funds that are available to purchase those in this year. So there was a change in that one. As you move down into DPW, Adam explained a little bit last week how he's kind of, at this point, level funded the road plan. That could change at some point in the future, he explained, but at this point, he's got those level funded.
Just for those who weren't here, you should read that part of the minutes from last time, because he explains that how he tries to do as much work in-house because cost of contracting, so it's a capacity limitation as well as a budget one that we have to be mindful of.
Then when you go line 124 through 127, you have 4 different bridges. And the first bridge, which is in design right now, is part of the state aid bridge grant program where the state pays 80%. And I think what is important to note here is Adam noted that the other 3 bridges he's trying to get entered onto that bridge program, but there is a bit of a wait list and they are prioritizing red list bridges right now. My guess is I don't recall whether Adam said this or not, but if they're unable to get to those bridges into that program in the 80%, he might end up pushing them out a year at a time, a little bit, or just do the design in-house. So that's another one that the offsetting revenue could show up in the future, because those 3 bridges are not in the program yet. I think we did actually show the reimbursement, but that's assumed that we would get it.
I have a note on line 128 for the garage roof repair and rooftop, can be moved.
Yeah, so this was, this is Adam's idea to have rooftop solar put on, and that would reduce our electric usage, our operating costs. There was a buyback period for it, but with the spike, or not spike, but I guess a little bit of a bump in 2024, where it goes up a little bit more, that could be a potential, and Adam did, he said he would support moving it forward to 2023.
Because I thought that way, there might be a way to tie it in with,
The venting and the fire sprinkler.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have some roof repairs that they need to take care of over there as well.
So did I hear you say that the thought might be to move it to 2023?
Yes.
Which is
Okay.
which is
Yeah,
a light
Which
Which
year.
is a light year, yes.
Yeah, and Adam, I think he said he's not a big fan of coming into a CIP process with a brand-new project that's never been seen. So I think that was his primary reason of putting it in 2024, but
What's your recommendation?
I think...
Not to put you on the spot.
No, I think in terms of projects, especially on the DPW side, he is a little bit light when you compare it to this year. And he's got some of the bridges and some of the other stuff in out years. So that might be a good project to target for a move forward.
And that would more balance 23 and 24.
It would balance 23 and 24, that makes 25 a little bit more.
25 and 26 are a bit of a,
Yes.
Well, is it because also we're seeing that $1.5 million from still ESSER grants is bringing down those 2 years?
well, we've already been approved in those grants.
Right,
so,
but
yeah.
that's income coming,
Yes.
revenue coming in that.
now, was there any offsetting, this was all gonna be taxable, well, at least get a grant here, possibly getting a grant. Oh, that was the grant you were talking about.
So, yeah, so he was either gonna do seek out grants, or possibly you can get into power purchase agreements where you're paying through your electric bills for the equipment. So the first, I don't know, 8 years, you might not see a savings, and then you see a savings later on down the road.
But it would primarily probably be tax dollars.
So what we did is we put in offsetting revenue of $200,000 on line 134. So I think Adam figured to be approximately about half the project.
Okay, now I remember him saying that.
Is that something you want to act on now, or do you want to wait and see what all the other variables are and then come back? What's your pleasure?
I think if we shifted it to 2023, that makes sense.
And it makes sense to have them operationally, you said, Derek.
Yes, again, because he's doing the venting project and he'll need to do roof repairs for that anyway.
Well, that's an efficiency issue, so you're making that motion,
I will.
okay.
What's the
Chair
motion?
seconded, okay, all those in favor say aye.
All right,
Oh, hang
Oh,
on, Ellen, did you?
What was the motion?
It's,
To move it forward on line 128, you're gonna move it forward to 223.
Is that the 400,000 thing?
yes,
Yes.
and we'd also move the related 200,000 of assumed offsetting revenue, or potential offsetting revenue.
Thank you.
Everybody else? If I put it to a vote, we all say yes?
Yes.
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 Okay. Yeah? Okay. So we'll do that. I don't want to push this, if you want to, if anybody has reservations, we don't have to, but it looks easy to do, and makes it look like we actually did something.
And then as we go on to the next page, you have sewer. Again, sewer is funded by user fees, so unless a member want to go through that.
I guess the hint is, if you want the easiest topic to present to the planning board, you do sewer.
I'll do it.
As we get down into admin, I will point out for those members that may not have been here, on line 161, there was a late entry for an election trailer. This is a tow-behind trailer for all the items that do not need to be secured, the non-perishable items in those voting booths, to put them in a trailer rather than packing, unpacking.
And they'd also be stored in the trailer.
They would be stored in the trailer as well.
So
So
the trailer would be secured at DPW.
DPW.
Not a big item, and
It's not a big, but I know that it did come in late, so just want to make note
several
of
of
that.
us work at the elections and appreciate the labor that would be said. Okay.
And then as you move into
Go back to the library for a minute, just to.
Oh, yes.
I just want to tie that down, it's on line 150, 51.
Where is it?
On what?
On page 5, right in the middle of the page.
line 149 is the project, and line 152 is the bond. It's noted here as bonds, donation, grants, and other. And the library trustees have since presented to the select board. They presented on July 11th to the select board. And their thought was that they'd like to go forward to town meeting, request a bond, and any donations, grants that they're able to get in, they would use that and turn that over to the town to offset those bond payments. So they would be seeking to get approval for the full amount of the bond.
It's already listed as 2023, right?
Yes, that's the year that they requested it in. That's what, again, they presented to the select board at their last meeting. Select board took no vote on it, but just took it as information and asked some questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they hired a fundraiser and they've projected they could potentially raise between $500,000 and $650,000, I think.
About 10% of the project. So, and I'll include that what was presented to the select board, that a bond of that amount, and again, it's hard to project out what we'd be doing a year from now, but at 4% interest rate, the annual payment would be about $450,000 to $470,000. Again, whether you start with bigger payments and with a level principal, or if you do level debt payments where you pay the same amount every year. So you're talking, upwards of $450,000 a year that would be the payments that would be collected through taxes.
During the presentation, was that the 20 cents per thousand on the tax rate that if they were talking, if they assumed to bond the entire thing?
So that would actually be closer to, that'd be closer to 25 cents, just doing the rough math in my head.
Okay.
We usually about 173,000. I think that's the number we used last year, but it's like about 173,000 is a dime.
Okay.
So if we're talking 450, yeah, it's probably 25 cents on the tax rate. And Lauren, I'll give you a little bit of preview. We probably won't be using a lot of tax rate this year because next year is a revaluation year. So talking about tax rate and what the tax rate will be next fall will be very difficult. But yes, if all things were to stay the same, it's about 25 cents.
Thank you.
But thinking through all of this, so it looks like we've got a library bond to be proposed to the voters in 2023, and then the Parks and Rec bond to propose to the voters in 2024. So we've got two big bonds coming year behind each other.
Yes.
But is that better than putting them in the same year?
Oh, well, yeah, sure, definitely, yeah.
And knowing Goffstown voters, as I learned, last how many years, a large project often doesn't get approved in the first year. Every school project, it's usually the third year. So if it needs doing, put it out front early, and if you want it to happen. So
Except that's two big projects. Someone might not want to support one and support the other if they were separate.
I wouldn't put them in the
they're
same
different.
year.
Yeah. No,
okay.
I'd do. But if you want them, I wouldn't. I think this. I don't know what you think, Derek, but you want to spread them out.
Yeah, it'd be ideal to spread them out, but I think spreading them out by 1 or 2 years really isn't going to spread out that much. But yeah, to have them both on the same ballot would definitely be a difficult.
So
Yeah.
if it's
23 and 24.
I would propose, if I want the chair and didn't want to make proposals, that we leave it as is, knowing that what do you got?
There might be a school to it.
So we're leaving the library in for
Yeah.
2023 and 2024 for Parks and Rec.
Yeah, let's get to that. That's your
I hate-
committees here. Lauren?
So I'm sorry, this is my first year on the committee, and I might be speaking as a budget member more, but please tell me if this is not the appropriate committee for it. So it is not our charge to argue the validity of the department, rather than just, as you said, to spread it out.
Well-
So for implications of cost in the future. So if I was to look at the pool project and say, I don't think enough due diligence has been done there to get public feedback and give a full plan to really put it at 2024, is this the committee for that, or is that?
No, I think it's fair for us, and one of the advantages of doing a 6-year plan is you can put something in the matrix, but say, we need more work to be presented next year to keep it there. I think for planning purposes, if there's a need, it's fair to put it in, knowing that it's not ready for proposal to anybody. But if it's in next year's 2023, we should expect a more detailed presentation, like the library gave us. That's a good comparison to the.
Yeah, that was my thinking, and I didn't, again, want to get off the rails in the wrong committee, but if the library's been working on this building plan since 2009, and they're coming in at 2023, and I don't know if it would pass in 23, would need to get bumped to 24, 25, but the pool is, there was also a lot of discussion about, well, what about Roy Park? What about this? So it didn't seem like it was fully fleshed out. I don't know
Can I
if.
speak on, I'll speak on behalf of Rick a little bit. His worksheet and submission form, this project first jumped onto the matrix in 2011.
Yeah.
So I think they're getting a little bit more refined, and I think they are getting to that point, but I think he's also, as a Parks and Rec director, and Brad, I know he said talked with the commission, they're getting to a point where structurally, I think that's what's driving him in 2024.
It might not open.
And I think he understands, that's why he's actually got, I think this is the first year we've had, or last year you asked him to come back with a revised budget estimate to get a better budget estimate. This is the first year he's really come in with, this is really what the dollar figure is going to be. And I think they're gonna start working probably on the public outreach to try and see before they would present it to the select board and then the budget committee. But I think for planning purposes, he's really saying it does need to be in that year.
And I toured the facilities, I can see that it might just not open one season, and we're getting to that point, so I do understand it needs to be kicked up, but I would suggest to put, if you want to keep this on 2024, we'd need some real solid public listening, and what are you going to do about Roy Park? Is it going to turn into a splash pad, so you have a full,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if that was appropriate to
Alan's always
put.
talked about that. Yeah, I think it's fair, I mean, there's a political aspect of
Yeah.
town with multiple communities.
Correct.
I think it's fair for us to make that comment. Leave it, if it's okay, you leave it where it is, but in our presentation in the report, we can say, it's got to come back with a more detailed presentation for next year to keep it on.
What do we
Thank you.
mean by detail? Not how they're gonna, it's because the Barnard Park pool structurally is starting to fail, is that correct?
Well, I think, that, yeah,
Both pools are starting.
both are experiencing issues and both are well beyond their useful life.
Okay, so currently Parks and Rec only has, they didn't present the whole thing like they did the year before, the replacement of the Barnard pool.
Yes,
That's all that this is about.
that is all that this is
And
about.
then, knowing from past years what the presentations were, I'm assuming there'll be something coming down the next year and the year after, since. we just-
I think there's always been discussion, and that question has always been asked of what are you going to do at Roy Park?
Right.
I don't recall that they've ever had a separate submission sheet. They've always kind of said they're both put in at approximately the same time. They both have lived past their useful life, and it's an issue that we're going to have to. However, Rick has presented Barnard Park is the one that
Is the one,
is.
right, but the year before, and the year before that, there was a bigger proposal.
I know the Parks and Rec has a facilities, you've done a facilities study a few years ago.
He has a facility study that primarily Barnard, but there was some at Roy. I just want to make a point here that we're talking pool, but we're also We're talking about the building.
The building, I
whole-
understand
the
that,
whole
I have no problem.
Kimberly?
But reach out to the public.
Kimberly?
I know also some of that participation with that Roy Park splash pad was that splash pads are very expensive, more so than I think everyone is aware of. And it's not a pool still, but yet it is, I think there was some discussion about, hey, we can make a smaller pool and a splash pad, and then reality hit, and splash pads are actually very expensive. So just something.
One of the rules I've created as chair, that I don't tell people about, is we're not going to tell departments how to do operationally their job. We can give the suggestions, but I don't want to tie that up into our considerations. I think we're going to assume they're competent and overseen by the school board or select board. But that's the type of issue that, I think, we want to send a signal, but
Yeah.
we're not going to tell them what the answer is. Otherwise, we'll go home.
Thank you.
That's summer. Okay. Anything else in this page?
No, I don't believe so.
Page 5, so.
Yeah, I went back to page, 5. Okay. Listen.
Jumping all over the place.
Yeah, that's okay, you're great people. Okay, page 6, we just talked about, we've kind of gone over all that, the sports complex and the pool. Anything more to say on those, Derek?
No, I don't think so.
Big items, but we talked about that. Let's go to the school. Let's keep Ellen happy. Did you let Ellen
I'm
walk us
watching
through
you
it?
flip and then I flip a page to make sure I'm in the right place.
Ellen, this
Telling me I
is-
need to go back to school?
This is not Derek's jurisdiction, so if you want to run through the school at the practice, your presentation of the planning board.
Oh, I can, don't worry about the presentation, just if you have questions, I'll do my best.
Why don't you characterize the types of improvements we're looking at and why they're scheduled how they are?
Well, a lot has to do with, almost, I'd say 95% of what's in the school site has been there for years. There are a couple of newer things, and Derek mentioned one of them, and it's around the driveway and parking lot pavement and refitting and that kind of thing of the driving facilities and parking in our schools has been added to this, to CIP. You'll see that in there.
Is that,
Where is that, please?
Those are in the individual schools, and those live in your, so there's 2 items. I think in every school in year 2028, for the most part, it's on one of the last lines. So as each green line is a different school or facility, and then they've got their overlay of existing asphalt, which starts out small when you're at Bartlett, Maple, and Glen Lake, just because of the size of their parking lots. But once you get up to Mountain View Middle School and the park and Goffstown High School, those are each at 1.25 million. So if those do live all in the same year, I think Scott is exploring what options are out there.
yeah.
I know that Scott is looking at, and has mentioned, it's been mentioned here and at board meetings, looking at the totality of the school district's CIP items and seeing if bonding to get a whole bunch of them covered might not be the more prudent way to go. But a lot of these are also being covered by the ESSER grants and different types of grants, so.
Dan, did you
You
have a
all know
question on
that.
that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, the parking lots make sense to do that because, they have not a long life, but 20 years, not more. If we're to bond them, that's 20 years, that's the life of it, right? And then we start over again, so.
Now, I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no.
Now, all the parking lot, they're all in 2028, right?
That's how Scott presented them, yes, he's grouped them all together.
We could move, in future years, we can move them, forward.
I don't know if it's me, but he's gotta come up with the proposal. If we're gonna do them, we're gonna bond it. Do them all at once.
Yeah. But don't forget, you have 2 months to do it, so somebody can't get all the work done in that short window.
That's true, too.
Timing.
Thank
Dan,
you.
you had something?
Yeah, so, I know that I'm jumping ahead here. I was doing some math and,
That's why we brought you.
and I was thinking, if it was the high school computers, the roofs, and all the laptops, they were all to be pushed up to 2023. to fill that gap on top of what we've already moved. So that way we can balance between 2023 and 2024. So that was just my suggestion.
Are they ready to do that? Ellen, what was driving the schedule, do you know?
I think this was being driven by the revenues from the grants
Okay.
that we know we have and that we'll be looking for.
So-
I'm pretty sure it's been driven by that.
I think it's
And
that,
the
but
capacity to do it all.
I would say on some of them, just looking at line 197, which is the Bartlett laptop cart, those were purchased in 2020. Again, one of the complicated things is COVID forced them to purchase a lot of laptops all at once. And a lot of that, I think their IT director is trying to get them to, those laptops to live as long as they possibly can. So that's where they've got end of support date is 2026. So does it hurt to necessarily move it up? No, I mean, it might be one of those items that you tell as a planning tool. Again, your planning committee that's advising the planning board of, maybe we shouldn't wait till end of life to start budgeting for these. And then the school then has that, they need to then go sell it to the budget committee, or they could come back next year and say, no, we really do want it in 2026, so.
But are there any items in '24 that, I think it's Dan's point, that could be moved forward to even out those 2 years if we need to?
You mean 23, 24?
23, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We didn't specifically ask him that question.
No.
Don't recall when he was
The,
being
the,
considered. Well,
we're, Ellen stole my thing.
I'm sorry. And I'm pointing to things here, I'm kidding.
Just let me slide that back.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know that it would, I mean, the abatement is of asbestos, oh wait, 24, so it's actually, we couldn't really even put it in 23 because of the way the school budget works. So that's the earliest it could even be done, correct?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I goofed up those years.
23 budget's already been up.
Right,
So we're pretty
rescinded.
yeah, okay.
Sorry.
I'm thinking though,
The roof replacement's back to the same thing, but only got 2 months to do the work.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, so-
right.
but I know the roof, yeah,
Well,
had to be done
It's-
in chunks.
It's a good point Dan raised, but if they've already locked in for the, remember the school budget, school year and the town year, fiscal year, they're different.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah,
Oh,
that plays with our heads, I can't do.
I was just looking at Bartlett, 2024 is for all the roof projects, and that would push money out of 2024, so it would leave us with the 2025, 2026 to push things that way, so we could spread it out more, so looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to move things into those two high years at 25,
Yeah.
26 until we have a better picture, just because people don't like big numbers.
No,
Even
yeah,
if you
that's fine.
can explain it, oh, we've got grant revenue, we've got bond funds, it scares them. Okay. Anything else that jumps out on the school? Alan?
So the roofs, we've got boiler replacements. The window projects, by the way, are going very well this summer. They're happening. At many of the schools. But there's no reason to change. Those two have to be balanced, those 2 years.
I'm not seeing, again, based on budget cycle, bunching activities, short time they have to do it. It looked to me as a thought-out plan, that we shouldn't force it too much. Dan?
Well, what about the smaller overlays? You know, that again, they wanted to bond, didn't think about bonding, but if we just push the smaller ones and let that go to the taxpayers, and then take the bigger ones, the ones that are 1.2, and bond those, it's just,
Yeah, usually when we bond, it's a discrete project. You can't bond operational costs, as with capital
well, it's
costs.
a, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what legal counsel, or what would they say if you were specifically doing all the reclaiming all the parking lots at all the schools. My guess is you might be able to, because that
I think we could,
is
yeah.
all capital. So, yeah, is there the possibility of moving some of the smaller schools out to and then maybe you could do that and do it as a recommendation, or just move those out and send the message to the school that, I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure because we don't want to bunch anything into these two high years in the middle. I'm not sure what we would move now.
The only thing that I had seen that might be able to move was, but it's coming out of the CRF, would be the bathroom renovations.
Which one?
Bathroom, 193
Bartlett and Maple.
and 203. That's 350 out of a high year of 2025. But as you said, you're moving it to the summertime would be a quick thing. But I also don't know if CRF would take it if you moved
Right.
it up sooner.
So that would be a total of 350, right?
Well, and they also have one in Bartlett Elementary as well. I think they had two schools, but they were breaking the Maple Ave one into 2 years, which with a July 30th, July 1st fiscal year end, it could be done within, 2 months right in a row. You're working in different fiscal years, so.
Yeah, I saw Bartlett, and one of Maple Labs is in 25.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't know,
Right.
but it probably makes sense to have the crew at one school.
Sure.
And the CRF has a schedule.
Right.
Scott has scheduled, what comes in and what goes out, and so if we're moving something around that's CRF related, the
Yeah,
money might not.
I hate to do that when
Be
we don't have
what-
all the information, and he does, and they seem to do a pretty good job of balancing.
If you want, I can go back, sit with Scott and come back to you
Well,
guys.
no, I don't think we need anything
Okay.
for this year, but we'd like to hear it when they make the presentation. Now, the department's not gonna like it if we say we're thinking of moving you back, but if we say we're thinking we can move some of you forward, give them a reward. Yeah, but, so they don't fix us into a schedule that may not fit into the big picture, because they look at it on a department basis and we have to look at it townwide. But I'm inclined to leave it as is for now, Lauren, do you? I mean, we haven't identified anything.
Jim, as you're talking about this, I'm looking at the revenues, and I don't know that the matrix that came over from Scott, and it's something I did not catch, but those projects that are identified as CRF, I'm not seeing them on the revenue side in 2024 through 2028, and I worry that I'm not showing that offsetting revenue, which is inflating 2024, 25, 26,
I think it
27.
would show at the bottom, I think, because if it was at
So I worry
25.
about that.
Oh, because
So
it's blank and,
just the bathroom renovations, those are two, you
So
know,
he's
those-
not-
That's interesting.
He's
He's not
both
showing the
identified
deposit.
those as CRF, but now that I'm looking closer at it, I don't see that I moved that CRF down to the revenue at the bottom.
Okay, so the consequence is the cost of taxpayers will be less.
Would be
because-
less, yes.
Would be less because Ellen, what are the mechanics of that CRF? That CRF is a separate article on
Each
every,
year,
each year,
200,000.
and it's okay, so,
And-
but you typically ask to take it out of fund balance, is that correct? Or
Yes.
that is what's happened in the recent years?
CRF is capital reserve fund.
Right.
So it doesn't have a future tax impact, the tax impact has already happened.
Right.
You're sort of paying in advance, and a CRF is
Right.
bond, you're paying in arrears.
And then Scott has a listing of, this is the balance each year, this comes in, and this is scheduled to come out, so we know we can cover whatever it's in here on the CRF.
So-
If that's what's happening, the tax impact is really on the money raised to the CRF every year. And that's done on not equalized, but a pretty even basis, so. Lauren, you're thinking?
no, probably thinking wrongly. If that's the case and we haven't seen the offsetting revenue, I think that might strengthen the argument for moving some of those, because 23 and 24 are going to be small. 25 and 26 are not. And I think it would also increase just awareness with, well, I don't want to get into the voting, but if it's this big jump, that's when people go,
That's right.
what's going on here?
Yeah, correct.
So even if it can be sustained through CRF because it wasn't put in this matrix, I think we might want to ask Scott if he thinks it's feasible to move it forward so everything does end up being a little more. Because that's, I mean, if you move the bathrooms, that's,
Well, remember, we have another meeting if we want to use it, so we can.
I don't want to call people back necessarily.
No, but I think we can at least get an answer and decide, have an alternative plan if we need it. I think he's probably going to say, no, it's going to stay where it is.
Okay.
But I think it's worth asking him just to alert him that we're thinking that. And so,
Okay, be clear with me so I can go speak with him. I don't know.
why don't you
Okay,
rephrase
be
it?
very clear, and I'll speak with him about what this committee's questions are and can come back to you guys. So what's the specific question?
Does it help if the bathroom renovations from line, Ellen, you moved it.
Well, okay,
Would I
if
say
we move them to where?
I'm looking for the line.
This is,
Line 193
this is the ones at Bartlett and.
Which is-
and Maple, and,
25?
yeah, and 203, potentially from 25 and 26. But I don't know that the CRF could take it at 2024 if the,
That's what I, yeah.
But
that's-
if, as Derek said, we're not seeing that in the matrix.
You're not
so
seeing the offsetting revenue.
Is it because it is not,
Can that be-
hasn't been voted on, so he doesn't want to count on it, or?
No. Can that be moved to?
Because it doesn't show up in line 278 for the CRF.
So just thinking about this as a whole, it's kind of hurting my brain. But, so we kind of want this to be flat because every year the voters have to pay for all this. But we're talking about 23 and 24 being kind of lower than what's coming ahead. But we're also talking about 23 and 24 having these big bond items as well. So there maybe we don't need to push things forward if we want those bond items to actually come through, because if not, both of those, as Jim said, sometimes you don't vote on them the first year, it's got to be kicked out the next year and the next year. So I don't know if we should be advancing things with that knowledge. Like, I understand why we do the math the way we do, if we've said that those are bonded items, but the actual tax burden, we have to think about if those get approved, would be part of those years.
You know, our answer could be, every year we look at this and we've treated the outer years, which is anything that, or next year, as a proposal, but not fixed in concrete.
Right.
That's the, I don't want to.
I will get answers to this.
I mean, we can approve it as is, knowing that, because they're not going to move it into 2023. What if they wanted to move it into 2024 next year, as long as it's alerted to? I think it's a good point.
And when you say moving to 2024,
From
the bathroom renovation, there's two for
20.
Maple Avenue, one in 25 and one in 26.
correct.
We could put them all into,
All three projects?
Or some.
That's just what I was asking.
Okay. I will
But I-
inquire and have that discussion
Yeah,
and get that
just
back
find
to
out.
you.
If-
I can send the answer to you and you can send it
Well,
out if you want?
Send it to
Sure.
Derek, okay.
But that's a very good point about the pool and the library too, is if it's coming up that helps with, well, this is small, but now we have the bond.
Right.
And you thought multivariable calculus was hard.
I just like seeing things all spread out.
But as Derek said,
Yeah,
we're not seeing the
well, you can just put them there.
revenue from the CRF coming
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, and before I just throw numbers into the matrix, I would want to confirm with Scott.
Okay. And one of the challenges we have, we don't have all the information that the department chairs have.
So that would lower these two.
Okay, let's leave that then as something, and
Okay.
I believe that we can, if he comes back with some material change, we'll call you back for the next meeting. But if it's not, and I don't think it will be, but I just want to hold that open, so we don't need to answer everything tonight, but if we can get mostly there and then leave ourselves some room to revisit, that'd be okay.
I will get that through Derek to whom? for the rest.
Most of the school stuff, it's a lot of small items in total add up, but similar expenditures in multiple schools.
It's very repetitive, school to school to school. It's the same stuff.
Anything else? Zip through that pretty quickly. Derek? You left out?
No, I don't think so. I think the one thing we always do struggle with, and if anyone has any bright ideas how we can do it next year, is as we start to get into these projects that are gonna be funded, how do we show them on the CIP matrix?
Yeah.
What we've tried to do is give you, in your binder, you do have what the current bonding between the school and the town is, and it's quite low, because the
I
school,
don't think the school.
the school is all done.
The school's all done.
The school's all done.
We have none.
Yep, they paid off last year and the year before.
Last year.
And the sewer recently paid off theirs as well. So the town is really the only one carrying that debt right now. So as we get into these bigger projects, whether we put just an addendum down at the bottom of how those proposed bonds we can figure something out.
That would be very helpful for at least our purpose of looking at the total impact of the bond.
Correct, yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah, so we don't get swayed by gross figures. Yeah?
Maybe the schedule of that, just the fire department, could we take that and pull it in at the bottom?
Yeah,
Show that?
yeah, we definitely could.
Like, maybe link it via formula.
Yep.
So it's on the tab.
Yeah, because right now it does live in the same, it's in the same spreadsheet, it's just a different sheet, so.
But it's not linked to this at all, right?
No, it's not linked or shown in there. And that one, I think this committee has struggled with this issue in the past, especially when there's more,
Yeah.
when there are more bonds out there, and we still had the landfill bond and some of the others in the high school bond, so.
I just so I can understand, like say for the library bond, 6.5 million or something like that, you have to put it in the matrix because you need to know and how much it is, and people can vote on it. They need to know what the total number is. But after that, it's going to be a 450,000 or so expenditure each year, right?
Yeah, but I think what we could show as almost an addendum at the bottom is to show that as the matrix is proposed right now, because right now in your matrix you have 2 projects that are being proposed to be bonded and quite a handful of others that potentially could be bonded. So it's one of those things we need to probably start having that discussion about.
Most of the bonds are 20 years.
You can get them as short as 15 or 20, it's just your payment might go up a little bit, but you pay for it quicker, so in the end you pay less. I think the difference between so what was in the select board's packet, so none of this is secret, this is right off of our website right now. A 15-year bond, the total cost is 8 million, a 20-year bond is 9 million. So it's just that difference of paying it off quicker, but your tax impact in those years is higher, so.
It's not just a budgetary numbers issue, it's a political issue.
Oh, yes.
And that's
Yeah, because the bond needs 3/5?
60%.
60%.
60% approval.
So, which is surprisingly hard to get.
When are we meeting again?
Well, we left a date of August 4 if we need it. I'd
Of
be-
August 4th.
I'd be delighted if we don't. Or if we phrase this for next year's presentation, but not look to change it now because it's enrolling it. Not current year, although with the school board budget cycle, we kind of have to deal with 2024 now.
So you want to, I mean, I'll get you the information
Yeah,
and
just
get it
to-
through
you get it
Derek.
to Derek, and then we can just decide, do we need to have a quick meeting to revisit it or not? Lauren's
Okay.
point, we don't want
I'll
to
get
love
that
you
to
all,
you,
but if we
Derek.
don't have to meet, that's okay too. So we'll
I'll
just
be on
have to-
vacation.
And
It
then,
is,
and then after that, it's to the planning board, which is
That's
what,
gonna stay on the 8th.
September 8th.
right there,
Yeah,
planning
okay.
board.
So let's wrap up this discussion. We voted to move one item which is the Public Works
It's a
garage
garage
roof
roof.
and solar, rooftop solar, but we left everything else intact.
Yes.
So Brad, will you make a motion to recommend this matrix to the
I
planning board?
will make a recommendation to approve the matrix with the moving of
Yeah.
the garage roof on line 128 forward.
Dan, will you second that?
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. That was good work. Now, we get to the fun part. Who wants to present what? We've got, I broke it down,
I want DPW there.
the administrative, which can include, there really weren't other, planning didn't have any.
No, planning,
Didn't have it.
CIP, I'm sorry, EDC, GTV, they didn't have any.
So, okay, fire, parks and rec, library, police, school, public works, and sewer.
And add.
So
Admin is at the top, yeah. 2, 3, 4,
Yeah, I
5,
would
6.
DPW.
1, 2, 3,
School.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I should make presentations because I do the overview. There's 7 of you with 8 topics. That way somebody has to do 2. Brad volunteered to do sewer, so to punish him for speaking out,
He
we'll
should
let
get
him do
2.
it. Yeah.
I can do Parks and Rec.
But, yeah, you do, when you do Parks and Rec. We'll talk in a minute what this means. Volunteer first, and then we'll tell you what you have to do.
I'll take DPW.
That's
I
the
think that was
most-
easy.
That's the most fun way. Alan, do you want to do school?
Absolutely.
Jim?
Okay, I'll take that.
Dan? Lauren?
Just 11.
Sure.
I'm the new kid, so you can give me the leftovers. Everyone can get their first choice.
So I was
No,
thinking-
not so. We'll give you the next to last. Dan? What'd you do last year? I don't remember.
The fire department.
You want to do it again?
Sure.
There's library, police, and admin.
I like the library, if no one else wants it.
We got
Sure.
everybody? Do we
I'll do the admin.
Yeah, at least police. Just
That
find
would be
out.
me, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you think you can do this and take notes
Yeah,
at the meeting?
I could do 2 if you want.
Well, I think what we've done in the past is we've sent the written notes to Gail, haven't we? Have we done that on this?
The written notes.
For the president,
He was
written
also the
presentation?
secretary of planning board. I didn't know if you wanted to do double duty.
Not in advance.
No,
I
not in
don't usually get
advance.
them in advance, no. But what I do is if I'm gonna make a report, I put it on my computer ahead of time, so I
Okay.
basically just read it
Okay,
that night.
You just read your
Okay.
notes?
I just read my notes.
So you can do both?
I can do it.
Okay, good. I didn't want to,
Last year I just did it off the top of
Okay,
my
so what am I
head.
doing?
but it showed.
I'm doing police?
3 of them.
Okay, so Gail, you do please?
Yeah, who's doing admin?
Me.
Jim.
Jim.
Jim,
Okay.
Right, okay, let's do math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Planning board has an attention span, 5 minutes?
Very small.
We don't have a lot of time, so it's got to be a brief, Brad, presentation. Just to summarize, they've heard it. There are no new members of the planning board.
No.
No. So they've heard it before, so you don't need to educate them too much. I think it's worth pointing out the general structure, some of the big items, and explain them, how they fit in it, what we've done to look at, make ourselves look good, what we've done to, you can lie,
That's
even
your
out-
job, when you're gonna tell them what we do.
to even it out, so, we, because the criticism from some of the planning board members, one of the planning board members is, we're just rubber stamping what goes before us. My answer is no. Through this process, we've taught the departments how to present in a good way. You go back several years, we weren't getting quality presentations. So there was a need to have more overview. I think, I was impressed with the quality of the presentations, the thought that went into them. So I think we emphasize that. No, they were good presentations, so we don't have to do a lot of second guessing. And the unstated point in that is planning board, neither should you, just off the tops of your head. you didn't dive into it, we did. So don't start just moving things around because you think you have a better idea without the information. I think it's fair to make that point, because it's true. I mean, just our discussion with the school brought that out. So you have to say enough to show this was thought about by the departments and by us, because we did do a pretty deep dive into it.
Yeah.
And if you can just leave that impression, you don't have to say too much about specifics. Is that fair? Okay, that's your charge. I'm gonna go out and have a beer while you're doing it. No, I'll make a introduction. But
Do you want us to, a couple years ago, you asked us.
yeah, I don't,
You
you
don't
don't need to
feel-
give it to me, no, you all know what to do.
Okay.
What?
So I'm sorry, this is something that I'd write it down for speaking, but this is a verbal presentation, or does the planning board want something in
No, no,
addition
it's a
to this
verbal.
paper?
What we do, if I get to it, is I do a report that then gets edited to go into the town report. Joanne and whoever else helps, there's a lot of editing, everyone knows it, for good way. So we don't need to make a written report on all things. They really will focus on the matrix, that's enough. So
Okay.
our job is to walk them through.
Can I ask that if anybody does have a written report and they want to email it to me, it will make doing the minutes a lot easier.
So if you have
Just a
written
hint.
it out, and you should, Brad, you should have something.
So just ahead of time, you like to,
I was just picking
even
that
if it's
name at
on your
random.
hand, just,
Yeah, don't. Extemporaneous speaking is an art most of us haven't mastered.
Oh, no.
So I'd recommend, but you want to keep it fairly short. If you could do 4 minutes, 5 minutes, would be ideal. Well, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, I mean, short is good. And they can read. They're fairly literate groups. You don't have to go down, list everything. Okay? What else? Pictures.
You just need to, once you adjourn, we can take pictures.
Okay.
Can I see your little try? I want to make sure I get everything
Second.
right. You're
Oh,
listening,
yeah.
who's doing what?
Okay. You made a motion to adjourn. Brad seconded.
Jim did.
Oh, Jim did. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, don't go anywhere.